Welcome to Birds of a Feather, where we explore the dynamics of relationships and how they impact every aspect of our success. I'm Jeremy, co-founder of Feather, and today I'm joined by my good friend, Josh Bey. Josh and I work together as reps at App Dynamics, battling it out for the top rep, and he's gone on to lead awesome teams at Lacework, ran the Americas channels at Grafana Labs, and is now Obsidian Security's VP of Sales for the Western US and in the Asia Pacific regions. And Josh, while you are top-notch in sales execution, one of the things that I admire most about you is that you consistently show up and you bring a positivity. It's infectious. It brings people in and brings them on the journey with you. And I really think it's an amazing characteristic of yours. And I just am super grateful for you being my friend. And I'm super grateful for having you on the show today.
Yeah, likewise. It's I feel like I'm, blessed to be here with a legend like yourself. And it's funny hearing you say you saw us as competing for the top spot, because we would be, right? Quarter in and quarter out. But I always felt like you were more of a friend than a competitor in most ways. And it's probably your infectious storytelling. I know a lot of great Jeremy Green stories at this point, from CA club trip where you were, I think you got a tattoo during a club trip. Was the only person I know to do that. And to like 100+ mile bike ride that maybe ruined your knees forever. I mean, I just got story after story that, when you open up to people like that, let them into your personal life, I think, you form lifelong friendships like we have.
Couldn't agree with you more. And yeah, there may have been a tattoo at a club trip. That's another story for another day. But yeah, it's a privilege to have you here, brother. Like, honestly. So I think our folks who are listening to this are in for some really interesting lessons and some things and hearing your stories today. But I'd love to, before we get going, give them some context, right? Maybe tell us a little bit about what you're doing at Obsidian. How are the relationships related to, your day, your role today, playing a role in your success? Anybody that stands out to you, like, just kind of read us in on where things are at today, and we'll kick it off there.
Yeah, sure. So right now I'm leading a team at Obsidian Security, and I've actually, even in the short time I've been here, it's been less than a year, coming up on a year next month, but I've worn a few different hats, right? So I've led sales team in the West. I've also had Asia Pacific for part of that. I've had the commercial team for a little while. So it's been nice to move around and help out where I can. It's all about, finding the right people to join, making sure that everyone's enabled, able to be successful. And then ultimately it's the customers. I was actually, I was at a conference all week with a lot of my team and a lot of our customers. And, the number one thing that I took away from it is sales is a transactional business by nature, but the most successful people, like doing what we do, it never feels like they're being transactional with their time or with you and with your relationship. And that's something I think we always have to be on guard against, is that transactional nature. And if we find ourselves slipping into that, then we have to course correct.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that one. I've talked about this in a couple of the episodes, and it definitely is a big driver for building Feather, that when you're stack ranked as, in sales, and you're looking at leading indicators, and you're just cranking out cold calls, and you're, trying to go do deals, and you're moving and shaking, it's pretty natural to like go after what's in front of you. And it's really hard, I think, to slow down enough to make it not transactional and take the time to be intentional and take the time to go put in those deposits when it's not what's most convenient for us in that moment. And it's a hard thing to go do. And I found that was kind of translating into and maybe bleeding over somewhat into my personal relationships, where like I was wheeling and dealing with my friends, and they're like, dude, you're not selling me anything. What are you talking about?
Yeah. That's what my wife says, right? So that's where it really hits close to home, when it's your spouse.
Yeah. And it's a hard thing to manage, right? But I'd be curious to know, from that perspective, like any scenarios stand out where maybe, you felt a little bit more transactional than you wish you had, or any of the challenges or learning lessons that you learned along the way that you might share with us.
Yeah. Oh, look, I mean, I brought it up. So fully guilty as charged. I've been guilty of acting in a transactional way many times. And like you said, the nature of the business can kind of, it's like a gravitational force pulling us down in that direction. And really the most inspiring people that I've gotten a chance to work with, we talked a little bit beforehand about people from our past who are either champions of ours or we're big champions of theirs. And I think the one thing that stands out, the one common attribute, is that I never felt that they were being transactional with their time. I think of someone like a Joe Gately, who we both worked with and then worked for. And he's someone who I, even a year ago, we got to spend some time together, just him and I over dinner. And there's just no agenda every time I'm with him. And it even felt that way, when he was leading us, when he was leading the team. And yet, we probably had the highest performing team, if not in the region, maybe even in the company. And it always felt like we had Joe's undivided attention, and he never had an ulterior motive when he spent time with us. So that's definitely someone that stands out for me. And it changes your view of leadership too. If you work for a leader like that and what you think of yourself as a leader, it's not necessarily the person who gets up and gives the big speech and fires everybody up. I mean, there's an element to that. But I think more, or the person who can drop into a meeting and say just the right thing at just the right time to win the deal. I mean, that's not the reality, right? The best leaders, I think, are the ones who clear roadblocks, take things that are complex, make them simple, and give people the space to grow and really listen to both the customer and the people on their team. So, that's what I see as what's working. But yeah, I've been guilty of the opposite, probably like as recently as this week.
Tell me more. What happened?
No, it's just I catch myself doing it all the time, right? You're in an important meeting, it's going really well, and suddenly you're checking your phone, you're looking at the time, you're thinking about what's coming next. You're not really taking the time to hear somebody out on the other side of the table. So, that's a generic example, but that's the kind of thing I've catch myself doing all the time.
Yeah, it takes a fair bit of self-awareness to be able to catch that. You go out to a restaurant, you see people have their phones on the table, and there's a lot of data that says that even just having it out takes away from the quality of the interaction there. And
Yeah.
I kind of see like I see Feather as maybe an opportunity, or at least this is so I hope as an opportunity for people to go get off the phone and reconnect in a meaningful way, whether it's the way that Gately would go and spend time one-on-one over dinner and not have the phone out, right? Or it's less about like, hey, let me have the vanity metrics and showcase all the cool things that I do and who I am and all that stuff, and more about like, can I get a nudge to not forget that it's been a while since I talked to somebody who's important, and go and check in with them, see how they're doing. And those relationships definitely scale. Be curious to know, when you think of, you've been obviously in enterprise sales for quite a while. Like when you think of the ecosystem of relationships that you have, tell me a little bit about some of the ones that are important to you today.
Yeah, some of those relationships that just persist even as we change companies and move to different areas, different segments of the market. I mean, Tara Marabanzad, she comes to mind. She was someone who, again, worked alongside me as an AE, and I eventually had the privilege of having her on my team, and we've stayed in touch throughout the years. And the way I think about it is, I mean, she might say the same, but she's never given up on me, right? Like she's always wanted to check in, see how I'm doing, see how the family's doing outside of work, right? Just how are you doing in life? And, I think we don't do that enough. We don't check in on people just in the general sense. Like we're usually going to people when we need something, we need help, need a favor, that kind of thing. So yeah, she's been a good example of that.
Yeah. Well, why do you think that is? Because we kind of know how important it is, but what is it that's stopping us? I get that we have a million things to go do, but we also have enough time to go and burn hours on social media, which doesn't, so like, why do you think that people are prioritizing things outside of, quite frankly, probably the most important thing, which is making those investments?
It's a good question. Yeah, we can go watch a bunch of 15-second video clips at the end of the day, but why can't we reach out to someone and just without any ask, just let them know they're doing a great job and how excited we are for whether it's a new venture or just a new career change. It might be that there's more investment required from us when we do that, right? The more people you keep close, the more they might return that and keep you close as well. But with that comes even more time out of your day. I'm not sure. It's just we might not feel comfortable being that close to that many people. It feels a lot easier to just kind of turn off at the end of the day and do something that's a little more mindless.
Yeah. So there's a British anthropologist named Dr. Robin Dunbar, and he talks about the cognitive capacity that we have as humans for meaningful connection, and that it's like circles, tiers of people. Like we have our close tier, and then our really close, like we're interacting with these people, but the cognitive capacity he calls out's 150, and that's a lot of people. And I got 2,000 people in my phone. You probably have close to or more than that also. And but 150 people to just keep up with them is a lot, right? Because there's so many moving parts. But there's so much dormant opportunity, both in the concept of joy and business opportunity that lies in those relationships. And so it's interesting. I think it comes down to we may not have the idea. We may feel like we don't have the time. There might be some like, hey, this person going to reach back out, and then I'm not going to know what to talk to them about. At least that's what I've been thinking about a bunch. But when you do that, you go build great relationships. When you put in the time, right? Whether it's the way that Tara interacts, and I've got a super fondness for Tara too, so I could definitely say 2 thumbs up for that one.
Yeah, it's consistent. It's not just me. I think she's like that with everyone.
Yeah, and those are the kinds of people that build huge networks. The people who care about you and will go and move mountains, right? But we do have to be picking and choosing where we spend our time. So I'd love to hear maybe a story from you. Like if I ask you to think of a relationship that you really put the time into, could be professional, personal, whatever comes to mind, that you're proud of, where you did take the time and you did put in the sweat equity. What would you tell us?
Oh yeah. Let me think on that one. It's funny, as you were talking about how many contacts are in your phone, I've never really looked. So I looked over here. It's 3,928. There's no way like I can really be in touch with that many people. But I think this just shows. I don't know. I've never gotten a new phone or something. I need to update things over here. But that quote from that anthropologist was pretty interesting because that's the 150 people mark. I was talking with my CRO recently just about, because our company's growing really quickly, and this question of how big can it grow and how big of a team can you really effectively mentor and oversee, and I always thought in my mind the number's around 100, right? I think there's 100 people I can really get to know well and keep track of, and it's kind of consistent with that number that you gave me. But okay, so back to your question, who's someone where the time was invested and you're saying it paid off in a lot of different ways, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I'm thinking of former deal champions, like definitely come to mind. And well, actually, it was a deal. I've talked about this one before, but for some reason it keeps coming back. It was a deal at Petco. Everybody knows Petco, where the pets go. And there were a few champions I met there, but one of them, he had come in via an acquisition. So he wasn't originally a Petco employee. He had started his own company, and that company got acquired. And just a really, dynamic person. He had done this a few different times. This was not his first, company that he started. It was not his first exit, not his first time getting acquired. And, since then, like obviously we did business together. He became a customer of App Dynamics at the time, but we stayed in touch. And everywhere else he's gone, and every other company he started, I've gotten a chance to either just stay up to speed on what's going on. He keeps me informed, or there's even chances to connect him and help him. Right. So more recently, I was able to connect him with someone Eddie Shanahan, like, who was also at AppD with us, who was part of a really early stage company. And one of my former champions was close enough to him to get him involved, and he provided all kinds of help to Eddie. So it was like just a great way to keep paying things forward from that relationship. And I don't think I've had any material benefit from it for 7 or 8 years, even though it started that way. So I think that kind of shows that the effort and the relationships you build should extend well beyond not just your personal circle, but even to the point of helping people like in your extended network. It's like the benefit's not just for you, right? It's for those around you.
Yeah, 100%. So when you think of like, how did you build or earn the trust out of the gate, right? Back in the in the Petco kind of sales cycle or early days, you're kind of feeling each other out, figuring out like, hey, do we want to work together? Can I figure out what your personal win is? Can I earn the right for you to tell me why you do what you do? Like, what's 1 or 2 things that in your recollection made an impact early days? Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So there were probably 3 different champions on this deal, right? But one of them had just moved from Miami to San Diego, where I live, and I moved here at one point, right? But I've been here 16 years now, so I kind of know my way around. But I remember what it was like to be brand new in this city, and it took a while. I mean, it probably took a good year just to get oriented and learn like everything. So this person was brand new from Miami. He's a husband, he's a father, he's got 2 kids. And I said, hey, here's some fun things to do, fun things with the kids. I actually give him a big, long list of things, like things I wish I would have known when I first got here. So some fun things to do with the kids, some great restaurants to go try. We should go try one together. And that's how we ended up first meeting. And years later, one of the companies he ended up founding was all around this idea of basically sharing recommendations for restaurants and travel and things to do. And he goes, it's not like he was fully inspired by me. He goes, I'm just like you. Whenever I meet somebody new, or if I know someone's new to a city, I want to share all these details with them. So the app was called Deets, and it was like sharing all this stuff to do in a new location. And so, he was kind of inspired by that gesture that I made, and it created a whole, company, a whole app out of it. But that's really what kicked off the relationship. And it was the exact right way that, I would have wanted to be treated, like when I was new to the city. And it's something that he really appreciated and responded well to.
It's awesome. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. Like if we all just put in a couple minutes 2 times a day, or at least once a week, to go and help other people, whether it's the impact that you made by connecting him with Eddie, or just putting in the little bit of extra effort to go and like make this person feel warm and welcome in a place that's kind of cold and not familiar. It changes lives, right? It's got this rippling effect. I really find it fascinating how these synergies kind of form that way. And it does take effort, and it does take intentionality. And so when you think about that kind of process or these kind of things, it is show up and don't necessarily ask for anything in return. But if we were going to go give 1 bullet point to the folks that are listening to this right now, from your perspective, what's one thing that we can do on a regular basis that you find has been helping you, whether it's building teams or building great long-lasting relationships? What coaching or takeaway would you give to everyone listening?
So I had no prep for this. I didn't know how I was going to answer this question, but from our whole conversation, right, when I was sharing some of your stories that I remember you sharing with me, to this example of showing someone different restaurants and places to go, to your question around why don't we do that at the end of the day? Why do we just go, watch something that requires no effort? And I think it comes back to this idea of vulnerability, right? Because if we were to share a really personal story about, I don't know, getting a tattoo on a club trip, or we were to say, this is my favorite restaurant in town, there's actually risk that comes with that. Because if they go to that restaurant and they hate it, they could judge us. You know what I mean? And so anytime you're reaching out, anytime you're being vulnerable, whether it's, sharing a personal detail from your life or even just opening up to the things that you enjoy. For example, this week I met a customer who happens to live in San Diego. So he lives in the same city as me. I didn't realize that the company we're working with is somewhere else, right? But everybody's remote. And he happens to live right here. I thought, hey, that's great. This weekend, I'm going to see a DJ Saturday night. And it's kind of a fringe, like this particular DJ. Not everyone's going to like this kind of music. And I go, hey, just so you know, this DJ is coming into town from Berlin. He plays a really great set, high energy. I'm just going to throw out the invite if you want to go check it out. And he goes, oh, wow, this is really kind of niche music. I go, yeah, it's not always what I listen to, but I like this guy, and there's always vulnerability, even in giving a recommendation, because you're sort of showing someone a little piece of who you are, and they could either choose to reject that and judge you for it, or they could accept it. And what I found more times than not, and the piece of advice everyone should leave with, is put yourself out there, be vulnerable, even if it's not their cup of tea, even if they go, I would never do that. They're going to remember you, and I think they're going to respect you more and just feel more connected to you. If they're not an extremely judgmental person, and even if they are, that's not your problem.
Yeah, that's right. And they can't be everybody's cup of tea. So the real big question is he coming to see the DJ with you this weekend?
He's thinking about it. He's thinking about
it. Oh man, I'm gonna have to follow up with you off camera on what Berlin DJ you're going to see. Might come meet you.
Yeah, you might like this guy actually.
Yeah, probably. I'm a big techno house guy, so electronic music in Berlin sounds remarkable. But in any case, I think this has been great, honestly. And coming to this conclusion of we have to be vulnerable, we have to assume some risk, we have to be ourselves and be authentic, and also making sure that we build our brand around showing up and doing that and putting in the effort there. You talked about Tara, and how whether it's with you or with me or with others, there are these individuals that consistently do it. And you talked about having lifelong champions where 10 years later, you're not asking for anything. You're still just trying to help them. And that is one of the reasons why I got mad love for you, my friend, because I know that's the person you are. And for everyone out there who's listening, hopefully you can go and try and be your genuine self too, right? And the stories that we talked about today and these ideas that we're highlighting is really why, relationship intelligence and being our genuine selves is our most best professional and personal asset in being able to live, successful business and personal lives. And so if any of this conversation's provided value, of course, anyone that's listening, we'd love to hear what you think about it. Drop some feedback in the comments. And anyone who's interested in an intelligent approach to relationship management, we're building something awesome with Feather. Check out feather.vip online. And you can have a look to see what we're doing from a relationship intelligence platform standpoint. My name's Jeremy, and this has been Birds with Feather, and we will see you next time.